That brings us over to, once again, the highlight of the month, even though one half of the match didn't show up for the pay-per-view. It's Raven and Jeff Hardy.
Raven's the fucking man. What can we say more that we haven't said about Raven at this point? He basically carries every good thing in this company that, like, isn't the tag division.
Or the X division.
At times.
So there's only 1 point to build to this match. It's announced very early that they'll face each other in a Clockwork Orange House of Fun match. I think that's announced basically before the first Impact.
And to be fair, like, this has had a month before it as well.
Actually, no, there's two. There's one on the Go Home show too. So on the May 6th Impact, Raven cuts a promo. And it's like a full 4-minute promo where he's really pitching this match on Jeff Hardy.
It's some classic Raven.
Oh, he's hitting all the beats here. He's like quoting Napoleon and everything.
Which gives you the opportunity, of course, to do your Raven impression, which is a highlight.
Yeah, so this is Napoleon through Raven. Glory is fleeting.
Through Garrett Kidney.
But obscurity is forever.
Quote the Raven, nevermore.
Yeah, he has some real nasty scars on his forehead here, falling from the lockdown match.
Yeah, that's the reason.
Like, yeah, he normally does, but like, there's like deep open wounds borderline. So this is the classic Raven promo. He talks about how he wanted to like Jeff Hardy because he's like, you're reckless and strange. I appreciate that.
I like Keith Richards.
But you're popular and I'm a weirdo.
I'm a freak. I'm a little crazy. I'm a little Jokerified.
He talks about how he wants to care, but he can't. All the gods can't keep score of the suffering he's inflicted. Hardy is standing in the path of his immortality. He is going to terminate Hardy with extreme prejudice at Hard Justice.
Extreme prejudice.
Hell of a promo.
Yeah, Raven rules.
Super duper Raven promo, but the good kind of like super duper Raven promo, where he's like full of himself in a way that's entertaining instead of full of himself in a way that is long run-on sentences punctuated by poetry.
With Marvel references randomly.
So the May 13th Impact opened with a wrestling match that so deeply confused me.
Yeah, okay. So I just thought this was just a match. So I mean, like, there's the spot in the middle, which is great. But go ahead.
So it's Edith Skipper versus Christopher Daniels versus Eric Young versus Jeff Hardy, and a 4-way elimination match opens the show.
And when you see this on paper, you go, what? How? And why?
There are many questions you have.
Yeah.
So the match actually starts off pretty hot. They hit a bunch of moves. Hardy hits a poetry in motion off the chair to the floor. Daniels took a chair that hit like a dive with the chair in front of him on the floor as well. Raven comes out. He brawls to the back with Hardy to set up their pay-per-view match. And then the match becomes the strangest match I've ever seen in my life.
It's great.
So there's 7 minutes on the clock. And Daniels is standing in the middle of the ring, with Eric Young and Elix Skipper on the floor. And for the next 4 minutes of this wrestling match, through a commercial break, all that is happening, over and over again, is Elix Skipper gets on the apron, Daniels knocks him back to the floor. Eric Young gets on the apron, Daniels knocks him back to the floor. Elix Skipper gets on the apron, Daniels knocks him back to the floor. Scott D'Amore gets on the apron, Daniels knocks him back to the floor. Eric Young gets on the apron, Daniels knocks him back to the floor. This happens for 4 minutes.
Personally, I think it's a good bit.
It happens for 4 minutes.
Before they went out, they got told they have 4 more minutes to film.
And the real funny part is they completely fuck up the timing of the finish after all of that.
Yeah.
Like, after all that, like, Skipper just buckshots his way back into the ring.
Which, to be fair, is a good payoff to the keeping someone out the ring spot.
Maybe not for 4 minutes.
Come on.
Did it for so long.
Come on.
So there was 10 seconds left on the clock. Skipper hits the sudden death on Eric Young to eliminate him. Then Skipper rolls up Daniels. The bell rings because the time has run out. A good 5 seconds pass before the referee counts the pin on Daniels and Skipper is awarded the win. And then they come back after the break and they're like, this crowd was going so wild and out of control for this match that the referee didn't hear the bell, and thus the match has actually been declared a draw between Daniels and Skipper.
Sounds about right to me.
The finish was meant to be the roll-up. Skipper was meant to win, but they fucked up the timing because they spent 4 minutes of Daniels knocking guys off aprons.
I loved it. I was going nuts.
So you gave this match 2 stars. You can't say you loved it.
I mean, I loved that section of the match.
Yeah, if only it didn't have the action on either side of it. If it was just the dude knocking people off the apron.
If they had committed to the bit that hard, do you not think I would have been into it?
So yeah, Raven and Hardy brawl off. That's the Raven and Hardy part of this match. But which takes us to Hard Justice, in which Jeff Hardy no-shows.
Yeah, so...
on the Hard Justice pay-per-view on May 15th, Jeff Hardy no-showed. He cancelled and reserved a later flight from North Carolina to Orlando 6 or 8 times over the weekend, depending on the source, before finally not getting there at all. Actually, he arrived after the show ended, as he was at the hotel hanging out with fans at midnight with his body all painted up like he was ready for a match.
Oh, Jeffrey.
He was at the TV on the Tuesday before he got word that he was suspended. They finally put their foot down with Jeff Hardy. He's been late. He's been delaying people. He kind of missed TV tapings. But now it's like live pay-per-view match is like the absolutely positively thing you have to show up for. And I'm afraid Jeff, you've been suspended.
Yeah.
He was very apologetic, but he didn't do himself any favors when he said the reason he kept cancelling his flights was because he was doing errands. People apparently didn't expect the new booking team would take such a strong stand against the Star, and I think like that was like their first real test, right? It's like immediately Jeff Hardy no-shows, so you have to again, statement of intent, just like the AJ video. It's their statement of intent. It's like you've got to cop yourself on here. Everyone's got to cop themselves on here. This is a professional enterprise.
Which is a good change of pace.
The inmates are not running the asylum. We're not in the asylum anymore. That was like a year ago. Huh.
I'm living in the moment too.
So the big thing kind of hanging over this is like Matt Hardy's been released, and there's plenty of rumors that he is TNA bound because Jeff's suspension will end on the 11th of July. Matt's no compete will be up shortly after. He's agreed to do dates with Ring of Honor at this stage, and the big thing is he's going to come in. Like the Hardys don't really want to team together, but they're willing to do it on like their first date just because that's what people want. People want the Hardys, and then he'll do like single stuff with Matt and single stuff with Jeff. So like the big thing with Jeff, and like probably the reason people didn't think he'd be suspended was because everyone thought Matt would come in. Ultimately, Matt goes back to WWE and never goes to TNA at this stage, but I think that makes it like an even like a braver decision is not the right choice because he no-showed your pay-per-view. It's the decision you should make.
But it is still like a brave decision because of, wrestling is a star business.
There is more at stake than just Jeff because maybe in theory, because I think Matt's compete was up earlier. So maybe if Matt comes in, you at least get the Hardy Boys match before he goes back to WWE, which would be pretty valuable to them if they didn't suspend Jeff.
Yeah. Pretty cold-blooded of Matt not to show.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, there we go. So, the first real roadblock in the Jeff Hardy TNA relationship.
Yeah, because obviously it was boiling over. It's not like they didn't have warning signs, but here he is. He's finally no-showed a live show
and a pay-per-view, no less.
Yeah, like if he no-shows an Impact, you can get over it. You can just rewrite the show.
He's done it before.
Yeah, you can just rewrite the show. Everything's fine. Whereas you advertise him for a live pay-per-view match and he's not there. That's a problem.
Yeah, they're very lucky they had Waltman.
So earlier in the show, Terry Taylor had Raven. Taylor said Jeff Hardy's not here. Then Raven he's a pathetic, disgusting coward.
But you know what? If you're not there, you're allowed to get buried on TV.
It's true.
Samoa Joe, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall.
So he says that Waltman will be the replacement, and Raven said he's going to rip somebody's head off tonight and spit down their brain. That he follows up by saying that he's going to make sure Waltman leaves on a stretcher tonight, and then he's going to blow up the ambulance.
That's very mean.
Raven is on one right now.
He's loving life.
He's like peak Raven at this stage.
He knows he's about to win the title.
The funny thing about Waltman is that he also had like a pay dispute because they're, I think, 2 paydays behind on him, but they came to a settlement and he did the show.
And he delivered a fantastic match.
He did. So Waltman replaced Jeff Hardy to face Raven in a Clockwork Orange House of Fun match that just kind of rocked.
Yeah, they just went out there. They worked a mile a minute. It was brutal. Waltman was great in it. Raven was great in it. It's really quite a fantastic little match.
Because Waltman hasn't really gotten a chance to show what he can do yet since he returned in February. God, it's been 3 months already. So he's only done like some TV squashes and he's done the Lethal Lockdown match. All of which he looked good in because he's Sean Waltman and he rocks. Because even when he's out there against Lex Lovett and Buck Quatermain, when he's just throwing his kicks, it's like, oh god, this guy rules.
And taking 50% of the match randomly.
Whereas here, where you can go out there and have like a real good match against Raven, a guy who has been one of the consistent best parts of this company for over 2 years now, in Raven's kind of match and a match that Waltman is willing to rise to Raven's kind of match, they just go out there, tear the house down. Waltman does just a bunch of wacky bumps.
Yeah, Waltman's flying all over the place, taking some stupid ass bumps, including getting thrown off the fucking stage into an abyss. Not into abyss, but into an abyss.
That's my favorite one because like they don't make a big production of it. They don't make like a big show of like teetering back and forth.
It doesn't feel like it was set up. It just feels like it's something that happened. Like they didn't like get in position and get this great shot of it. He just went flying.
Yeah, because they just walk up the ramp and then he just hurls him off the side of the stage through a table that happens to be set up there. And he kind of missed the table.
Kind of a table. Like, he kind of goes through it.
Yeah, but it's one of those, as you said, it's just like organically incorporated into the match where it's like he drags him up the ramp and then before you know it, a man is flying off a stage.
And Raven's bleeding. He's bleeding. This is some classic Raven bleeding.
Yeah, Waltman's also bleeding. Waltman hits a senton off the top through a table on the floor just to give people their Jeff Hardy fix.
Yeah, it feels like a little fuck you to Jeff there.
Raven handcuffed Waltman to the post and started beating with a cane.
Which is a really good spot.
It wasn't apparently enough, so we went going looking for a chair. And then Dusty showed up while Raven was looking for a chair. And with some referees, he had a master key apparently.
Blatant flagrance of the rules.
Of which there are none. And if there are no rules, that means Dusty can do whatever he wants. Boom!
A biased authority figure who cannot be trusted.
Listen, he's already been ousted. He doesn't care anymore.
Fair.
He's just doing whatever the hell he wants.
Again, I was proven right about Dusty Rhodes. This time, as a character, being completely untrustworthy as a man in charge.
Vince Russo would never.
Exactly!
My favorite part of that, though, because Raven was off searching for a chair, he didn't actually know that Waltman was, uncuffed, and then Waltman made a big comeback. And then the finish also rocked. So, the way Clockwork Orange is set up, there is a single cage fence set up on one side of the ring.
Mm-hmm. Very Cage of Death.
So they used it a couple of times in the match where it, grated each other off of it. And then the finish is Raven is standing in front of it in the ring. He backdrops Sean Waltman into the cage fence, which collapses to the floor, Waltman with it, and then Raven pins him for 3. Fantastic visual, awesome finish, tremendous match.
I also love that he didn't, just pick him up and DDT him and beat him. It was just off that collision.
Yeah, he just launched him into the cage collapsed. He just rolled down the, collapsed cage door, and Raven just pinned him.
It probably wasn't, a crazy intensive bump, but it looked like one.
And I imagine there's that little bit of fear. I'm not sure how they set it up so that the cage would collapse. But I'd imagine there is that little bit of fear of, what if it doesn't?
Yeah, and then he just slides down.
And then it does, and everything goes fine. I think this is, one of the most underrated matches in TNA history. Nobody talks about this match, and nobody remembers this match, and it just fucking rocks.
Yeah, it's great.
It's just two guys just going out there doing wacky shit.
Probably doesn't help that it had just followed the AJ Abyss match, which is way more well-known.
And it also doesn't help that it is an impromptu match because Jeff Hardy no-showed the pay-per-view.
Yeah. Probably better than the Jeff match would have been, to be fair.
Yeah, and these guys delivered. They gave people value for money. I don't think anybody would have been upset that they didn't see Jeff Hardy on the show.
Mm-hmm.